It is so wonderful seeing so many people from all over the Cape here. I want to introduce our MC for the day. It's Dale Cap. She is the chair of the Town of Falmouth Affirmative Action Committee, and she does a lot of really good work. So here's Dale, and enjoy the program.
Thank you very much for that. It's fantastic to see you all here today, and especially today, January 15th, actually on January 15th, the birthday of Martin Luther King, and today, Dr. King would have been 95 years old. We want to recognize some people who are here to celebrate with us today. We have Bill Keaton, U.S. Representative. We have Susan Moran, State Senator. We have Doug Brown, Falmouth Select Person. Robert Muscali, Falmouth Select Person. Michael Renshaw, Town Manager. Peter Johnson Staub, Assistant Town Manager. We have Chief Jeff Laurie, Chief of the Falmouth Police. We have Lori Dorr, Falmouth Public School Superintendent. We have Ron Galbert Boyd, Cape and the Islands District Attorney. We have Donna Buckley, Barnstable County Sheriff. We have Anastasia Welsh Perino, the Barnstable County Register of Probate. We have Michael Kasparian, President of the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. And we have Jean Marie Stevenson, Chair of the Mashpee Inclusion and Diversity Committee. I think we'll open with an opening prayer by Dr. Sayana Mousi.
Good morning. Father, Mother God, we give thanks for this special day of remembrance. Today, as we hear the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, we are reminded to be open and be open some more. We open ourselves to the language, the words, and the culture of those who live and work around in our community. We open to new ways of thinking and embracing each other, which widens the parameters of our circles. We are open to the knowledge that we are the change that our community has been seeking. Mother, Father, God, we remember today that Dr. Martin Luther King said we were taught, as most others, life is a gift and we ought to be grateful. But for us, it wasn't about counting the blessings as much as recognizing everyone's dignity. Help us, oh God, to be grateful for our likenesses and our differences of those people we encounter along the journey. Help us to love and embrace and honor each other as part of the beloved community. Help us to love and know that equity is not a challenge, but a gift we give to ourselves and our community. Let us walk this day forward, knowing that perfect love casts out fear. And oh, Father, Mother God, let us be reminded of what Dr. Martin Luther King said. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Oh, holy God, we accept our oneness, our gratefulness, and our loving kindness. And for this, we give thanks. I seal this prayer with Amen, Ashe, a word from the Yoruba religion, which represents the power that makes things happen and produces change. And so it is. Asante Sana means thank you in Swahili.
We all realize that many times it takes a village to get things done, and that is truly what today's program has required. We thank Falmouth Community TV and all their crews who film and edit this celebration. We thank the Crest Hotel and Resort for this great space, and we express our appreciation to the kitchen and the wait staff for the food and the service. I'd like to ask No Place for Hate Falmouth Steering Committee and the Breakfast Committee volunteers to stand up. We're sincerely grateful to you who for 17 years have hosted these MLK Junior Breakfast. It's a wonderful event and it never fails to bring the community together. We appreciate the generous gifts of your time and of your enduring effort, so thank you. When we remember the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., one thing we recall is that he included a wish for his own and for all children. He wanted children to know that it's okay to dream. More importantly, that they can make their dreams come true. He emphasized that true education should not only focus on intelligence, but also in nurturing good character. Let's listen to Lynn Boucher's 5th grade Fawn School students as they give witness to the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. by reciting a section of his I Have a Dream speech. Wonderful delivery. Well done. May we never stop ensuring that our generations to come continue to learn Martin Luther King Jr.'s persistent hope, respect for peace, and desire for justice. As we all know, standing up for justice is a constant effort. Yet, we have examples all around us of many who continue being beacons of light for us as we each, in our own chosen way, stand up for justice. Next, Pamela Rothstein will make a special presentation of the 2024 No Place for Hate Falmouth Civic Leadership Award to one such shining example. Pamela?
Good morning, everyone. It is such a highlight of our year as a community to gather together, and a privilege for me to stand before you, looking out at you and making this presentation. I would like to call forward to represent the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition, Ruth Gaynor and Sandra Gifford. Please join me up here. Why don't you stand over here? And because there's only room for the two here, I would ask for members of the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition to stand so we can recognize you also. For several years now, No Place for Hate Falmouth has awarded a civic leadership recognition to individuals and to, more likely, organizations, actually both, in town who do the important work of activating the call for justice and to do that important work. And this year, we are delighted to honor the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition. A few words about basic background in case you don't know about the coalition. The Jewel Cobb Action Coalition initially was started by a group of Woods Hole residents who initiated a community-wide campaign to change the name of what was formerly Agassiz Road in the woods of Woods Hole to what officially became Jewel Cobb Road in November 2020. Their efforts emerged from revelations that the prominent scientist Louis Agassiz, credited with inspiring the start of the Marine Biological Laboratory, was a white supremacist who used his science in support of his racist theories. The group gathered the community in a wonderful effort. You didn't have to live on Agassiz Road. You didn't have to live in Woods Hole and walk those roads. You may be somebody else from Falmouth who walked those roads and noted that place name. They called out to the community to petition the town, and they succeeded in a wonderful, wonderful effort of community organizing. They chose to honor and memorialize Dr. Jewel Plummer Cobb, a distinguished cell biologist who worked at the MBL early in her career. Subsequently, she became dean at several colleges and universities and the president of California State University at Fullerton. She was most proud of her mentorship of aspiring young scientists, especially women and people of color. That alone was a magnificent achievement and a great milestone for our town. But the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition wasn't going to stop there. That energized them to continue on the path of recognizing problems in our nation on the local level, turning their attention to the very important and debilitating problem of the housing crisis here, and helping us to achieve the kind of community we want to be. So it is in recognition not only of the work that they have done, that one very concrete action that they took, but of their work exemplifying what it means to draw together the community around a cause, to raise awareness, to educate the community, and to spur them to action over issues that impact us every single day and every single one of us. It's my honor to present to you this plaque recognizing that the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition is awarded the No Place for Hate Falmouth Civic Leadership Award for this year, and we're going to hear from Sandra and Ruth themselves.
It is a great honor for the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition to receive this award from No Place for Hate Falmouth. The honor is deeply meaningful for us coming on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day. The JCAC is committed to achieving goals of both Dr. King and Dr. Jewel Plummer Cobb. Goals for an inclusive, equitable, and welcoming society. The challenges, roadblocks, and biases that Dr. King and Dr. Cobb faced are still very much with us. Across the country, we receive daily reports of attacks on limited advances that have been made and the thwarting of efforts for progress. So we are profoundly grateful for the community assembled here today, where resolve to correct injustices is alive and well. Jewel Plummer Cobb was a distinguished scientist, cancer researcher, and educator. One of her mentees, now and later colleagues, now lives in Falmouth, and her dear friend, Sylvia Langford, is here with us today, and Michael Goldring, who originally brought Jewel and her achievements to our attention, is here as well. We're so grateful to them. Jewel came first to MBL and Falmouth in 1949. When she had difficulties finding housing, though her friend Irene Goldring, like Michael's mother, did not. The JCAC of today is a grassroots group of neighbors and friends committed to achieving Dr. Cobb's goal, a welcoming, inclusive, fair community. We have been fortified this year by joining forces with the housing advocacy group of young MBL scientists who are eager to put down roots here so that they may securely contribute to enriching this vibrant community of Falmouth. And I know three of your group are here. Hannah and Michael and Jackie, will you stand up, please?
If the goal is to be welcoming, then housing must be a priority. Housing that is affordable and housing for our workforce. We have sat on the housing committees, attended numerous Housing Assistance Corporation activities, wrote letters to the enterprise, and have written letters of support for local developers who are addressing Falmouth's housing crisis in a planned and thoughtful way. We will continue to educate ourselves as well as to support a positive impact to this very complex need. Thank you again for recognizing the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition.
I would like to call up Congressman Keating, followed by State Senator Sue Moran. You can come up afterwards.
Thank you so much. When you said that we face challenges every day, disgracefully so, I see that every day in Congress with this current Congress. They are stripping language of diversity, inclusion, equality from every major piece of legislation, stripping the funding from every piece of legislation that includes programs to deal with this. They're stripping defense legislation to do away with Civil War memorials, fighting that battle again, and even dealing with changing textbooks, exercising our actual history, and putting in place a false narrative of what our history is. So it gives me great pride to present right here in Falmouth, in my district, an organization and real action that's being taken place to do the right thing at a time when we should be having national leadership. It's taking us backwards. But it's communities like Falmouth, it's days like today when we fill a room like this, and when we honor the work that you've done to take us in the right direction historically, that gives me great pride to present this recognition to you. A congressional recognition, something the current Congress should heed themselves. Thank you.
I am so honored and pleased to be here in my hometown with a room full of advocates when, as Congressman Keating just said, right in my own Senate district, there is a school committee talking about language, essentially banning books, which would have, I think, the effect amongst our youngest, our most impressionable, that they're not important, that they don't deserve things, that they should change to accommodate society rather than being their true selves. I want to thank Dale and Pam just for putting this on and everyone involved. And, you know, think about this award. Words matter. Who we honor says something about our community. I'm also mindful of the blessing, stick with love. We have to continue our fight for inclusivity and stand up for equity and justice. And I'm proud to have here members of the delegation. I know many were announced, many folks, teachers, faith leaders, really volunteers from every level. I saw Rep. Exaros come in, Rep. Kip Diggs. Many, many folks are here to celebrate what Falmouth is. And I am here on behalf of the legislature to give an official citation to the Jewel Cobb Action Committee being honored with the Falmouth Civic Leadership Award. Be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested with a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate, signed President Karen Spilka, Michael Hurley, the Clerk, and myself, very proudly as your state senator to give this award today. Thank you.
Congratulations to the Jewel Cobb Action Coalition. Thank you for standing up to assure who we choose to honor and how we celebrate these people reflects your vision of justice. I agree with Senator Moran that we should definitely be thankful for those that put this program together, including Reverend Nell Fields. And as Senator Moran has said, today we have with us Representative Kip Diggs. And Representative Zahoros, I hope. Next, we have a presentation by a friend of our own, Henry St. Julian. Our keynote speaker is Mr. Manuel J. Fernandez, the Chief Equity Officer at the Cambridge Public Schools. His topic today is fostering equity in the community. Mr. Fernandez is a veteran educator and has a history of providing consulting services and to advance equity and inclusion. So I'd like to invite Henry up to introduce his friend.
So I was supposed to keep this short, so I'm gonna keep it short. I had the paper out, and Nell was like, no, short, get that paper out. So let me just say this. My friend Manuel has been part of school education for 40 years. He has been a pillar, and I just want to read one thing. He provides transformational development in equity inclusion in schools, organization. I could talk about all the schools he's been involved in, all the schools that he's been getting degrees, but I'm not going to talk about the organization. I'm not going to talk about the towns. Gotta say Cambridge. I gotta say Cambridge. I can talk about all the community action, but for all these years, he's been involved in transformation. I think that's what we're talking about. It's not them against us. It's about the community transforming us together towards having everyone being involved. He's been a pillar. What I do want to say is he is the president of MCEL. MCEL is a group of DI leaders and around the school committee, and they get together, and he's the president of that leadership. And because of that, I've been a part of it, and I've been using him as my mentor. He doesn't realize it, but I'm like saying, I got this problem. I got it. Last time I said something, I got a problem, he got the whole group and said, okay, Henry, you're in the middle of this, let's deal with your problem. So he's been a mentor, he's been transformational in all these areas. If you heard my speech last year, I should have given him some credit. There's a couple I should have given him some credit, but he has been transformational on that as well. So I'm very happy to have him here. I'm very proud to have him here doing so many good works. Please give Manuel Fernandez a warm and powerful
Don't blame me. He said it. Let me first say thank you, Reverend Nell Fields and Pamela Rosny and Henry, for inviting me to be with you today. I don't know if I'm a little taller than, there we go. Hey y'all, come on in. Now we got this. I want to first say, isn't it wonderful to be in a room with legislators who think like us? Because it's real scary out there. It's real scary out there. And as the president of an association of folks who do what I do in schools across the state, and as the head of the Cambridge Public Schools Office of Equity and Inclusion, I gotta tell you, every day is a challenge. Every day is a real challenge. The first challenge, I think, for me, was being born a Black Cape Verdean in Boston and being raised in Brockton, Massachusetts. I attended Brockton schools from grades 1 through 12. We'll talk about that. I experienced so much racial bullying growing up. I grew up in Camp Hello, and I grew up at a time when there weren't a lot of black folks in Brockton, unlike today. And my teachers, I remember once striking out in intramurals. It wasn't even intramurals, it was the PE class. I struck out, which was not rare. I was not an athlete. And I went to the PE teacher and said, they just slapped me. Grow up, be a man. When I was in middle school, my guidance counselor, I only saw once, asked me to come in, and he said, you know, you should go to voc school because kids who look like you don't go to college. Now, I think they're also trying to get as many people as possible to go to Southeastern Regional Vocational Technical High School. That was one reason I didn't want to go, because it's a Southeastern Regional Vocational Technical High School. Every time someone asked me where I went to school, it was just too much. The first time someone mentioned college to me was in May of my senior year. And the late, great Gerald Fady, one of my teachers, because see what happened is that I got transferred from college prep into business, because again, you have no business being here. And so I ended up running the business, running the school store. It was good for the ego, you know. I aspired to be the manager of the Bradleys of Westgate Mall, where I had an internship. I'd be way out of luck since there's no more Bradleys. But that was my greatest aspiration. He put me into college. Massasoit, before Massasoit had that palatial campus they have now, is a little girls, old girl, Howard Girls School. I went there for a semester and flunked out because I wasn't prepared. They were right, I wasn't prepared for college. Race is always operative and sometimes relevant. Race and culture are always operative and sometimes relevant. And that's something I figured out early on without even knowing what those words meant. Now, since that time in Brockton, I dropped out of school. I was hanging out on the street. A guy named Rudy Santos, who was from Wareham area recently, but I knew from Brockton, said to me when he saw me hanging in the park doing some unseemly thing, said to me, when you were a little kid, I thought you were going to be somebody. I guess I was wrong. Boom. He helped me become a community organizer in the city of Brockton for the Three Pyramids organization. He helped me get into college. I became a middle school guidance counselor. I eventually became a MECO director. I co-founded an anti-racist collaborative. I've been an assistant principal and principal in 5 urban districts. I'm a workshop developer, a facilitator, an adjunct professor, kind of okay keynote speaker. I own my own consultant firm, all around DEI. I'm the founding head of school of the Cambridge Street Upper School. I'm the inaugural Chief Equity Officer of the Cambridge Public Schools, and as Henry said, I'm the president of the Association of Massachusetts School Equity Leaders, but I wasn't supposed to go to college. And I don't tell you that because I'm all that. I tell you that because I think of the scores of black and brown brothers that I went to school with who didn't get those opportunities, who have not been as successful in this realm as I have been. And so I'm ever thankful for all of those people who touched me, because none of us is an island. None of us walks this journey by ourselves, no matter how we tell the story. What I've learned about fostering equity and inclusion and belonging in any sphere is it first requires us to be reflective, to think about what we have done thus far to bring us to where we are today. what kind of changes did we make that made a difference? You have to look at the dismantling of structures that create bias and create exclusion. And it's only achieved collaboratively. I ask all of these people here, this is an impressive group. I've spoken to many MLK events throughout the state. And y'all rock. I mean, this is, yes. But where will you be tomorrow? What will you be talking about tomorrow? Who will you be talking about tomorrow? See, everything I ever learned about equity and inclusion and belonging, I learned from students, from young people. Because us old folks, we just get set in our little ways as well. Let's be comfortable and just, it happens, what we're gonna do. The kids say we're gonna do something different. I was a middle school principal and I had a student write me and say to me, Mr. Fernandez, you say you're all about equity and inclusion, and I need you to know that as a non-binary student, I feel excluded. You have this rule that we can't wear hats. And one of the things about hats is it allows me to present myself the way I want to present myself on that particular day. And so I invited that student to come speak with me, and invited that student to bring other students with them if they would like. And so when they came to me, the first thing I learned is that this thing called they and them, which I was not privy to at the time, and I was supposed to be Mr. Equity. So they told me that I'm not a she, I'm a they. So I sat down and I thought about it and I said, okay, you can start wearing hats on Tuesday, I just need to let the faculty know. And so they said, well, that's great, but what are we gonna tell the other kids? I said, no, that would be weird, like everybody who's got hats on is a they or them. No, everybody will get to wear a hat starting on Tuesday. Another time I had a group of young ladies come to me and they told me, Mr. Fernandez, the dress code is discriminatory and sexist against girls. I want to emphasize this for 7 students. 6 of them were girls, white girls, 1 was a white boy. You may think so. Because then they went on to say, it's racist too, because so many black and brown girls are not built like sticks like we are. And so you're asking us to wear certain things, blah, blah, and we had a teacher say to us, you girls shouldn't wear that because you're distracting the boys. She said, why don't we teach the boys to quit sexualizing us at 11 years old? First thing I did was write an email to the parents real quick, like before the kids got home, and said, no more dress code. And then really talked about what does that mean. See, we live in a very, very diverse community and society, but it's permeated by supremacy. And don't get mad at me now, don't get upset, I'm not talking about anybody in this room, be real clear now. When I say white supremacy, I'm not talking about folks walking through Charlottesville talking about Jews won't replace us. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that we live in a society where to be white, to be male, to be straight, to be Christian, to be able-bodied, neurotypical, thank you, whoever said that, is to be privileged. And is to receive benefits without even yawning. And what I've learned is that there are so many people out there like myself, but I'm not naive, I'm pretty privileged at my old age. It took a while to get there. I still wish I had hair, but other than that, everything else is going well. We've been socialized in our society to look at people who don't fit those categories that I listed, and there are many others, For instance, I do this exercise. If this was a workshop, I would do this exercise called "What's the World Like for Left-Handed People?" How many people here are left-handed? Raise your hand. Sometimes it sucks, huh? Because they don't think about you. They don't think about where you're seated. They don't think about the equipment that you use. And then we use words like left. Think of the phrases we put left in. Oh my goodness. Left wing, left out in left field somewhere. Now, if you take the word left out of there and you put race and gender and sexuality, etc. in there, you get the same sort of outsider status. We're socialized that way from the day we're born. The day we're born, we are unbiased. We only want three things. We want to eat and drink. We want to be hugged and loved. And we want to go to the bathroom. That's pretty much it. Everything else is learned behavior. And when we learn about ourselves, sometimes we learn about ourselves, we learn negative things about ourselves. And sometimes we learn about other people, we learn negative things about other people. And we carry that into our youth, we carry it into our schools and our community institutions, our religious institutions, and it's confirmed and affirmed by those other adult caregivers in our lives. And that cycle continues as we turn on the television and social media and all those other things. We learn things about people. I mean, when you're 6'3", with a pretty long arm range, you're constantly being told or asked, "You play basketball?" My first year as an educator in the Wayland Middle School, these gentlemen asked me to play basketball until April, and I told them no. I was the only black male in the building. And finally, they said, "We just don't think you like white guys." Fine. I went and played, or tried to play basketball. They never asked me. But we have these images of people that are a part of the socialization process that we carry with us. And when we see something, we don't even look at what we're seeing. We go into our minds, our memory banks, the files and folders we've collected about others all our lives, and we pull a card and say, "Yep, basketball player." Does this make any sense? Happens to us every day. Walking through the mall, walking down the street. I mean, driving in traffic, somebody runs you over or runs into you or cuts you off, and you look and you figure out, who's driving that car? Oh, yeah, figures it's one of them. I'm not gonna go there with what one of them is. You can fill in the gap for yourself. This process becomes a part of how we navigate the world. It's how we see ourselves. I mean, I think about it all the time. I think about where I'm at, where I'm driving, what neighborhoods I'm in. Because it's important to me to be safe, just like everybody else. So my students have taught me that those furthest from justice, they learn this at a very young age, and they learn that they've got to adjust since the society's not adjusting for them. Race and culture are always operative and sometimes relevant. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you get it? Because see, my height is always operative. Don't play ball, but I'm still 6'3" every day. That may change in a few years, but I'm still 6'3". And I walk through supermarkets on a regular basis and nobody notices me. Until, sir, can you give me that paper towel? Now my height is relevant. You get me? Race is always operative and sometimes relevant. And so it's real important to keep in mind that we are not colorblind society. We are not a blind society in any way, in shape or form when it comes to culture and diversity. But it's not our fault. It's how this society's been organized. And all the work that we have done over the last 50 or 60 years is being rolled back, as the congressman said earlier, and the senator said earlier. It's all being rolled back. It doesn't have to be that way. We can't control what goes on in Florida or what goes on in Texas, but we can control what goes on in Massachusetts. We can elect leaders who speak plainly about how important equity and justice is. We can become more than performative. See, performative work that we do really looks like Black Lives Matter bumper stickers, Black Lives Matter signs, LGBTQ plus flags. It's performative because I was in a a Metro West community about 2 or 3 years ago, where them houses are so big, you know, like the yard is as big as this room, the front yard. And on one side of the pathway to the front of the house is a sign that says Black Lives Matter. And the other side of the pathway in the same house, the same property, is a sign that says, do not build low-income housing. Let me write a check, but please don't come. We're being very performative, generally speaking, in how we advance equity in our community, and it's not equity. When we push it a little further, by the way, the Jewel Carb Group, that's transformation. That's transformative. That's setting a record straight. What we usually do is mitigate it. We see somebody being left out and we try to reduce the harm. But we don't dismantle the structures that create the harm. That's what transformation is. We have to embrace equity as a verb. Those of you who are ELA teachers, I know it's a noun. But in the context of social justice, it must be a verb. It must change. It must be intentional. It must be about transformative outcomes. See, we know inequity is a verb because we can see the pain of inequity. Somebody living on the streets, not because they want to. Somebody not having enough to eat. Somebody not having a winter coat today. People being discriminated against because they're non-binary or they're transgender. See, one of the things about people who are on the other side of justice is that we know when you're doing it to us. Because we've had to learn how to navigate it for a very long time. We know when we are being left out. We know when you don't really mean what you just said. Equity has got to be a verb. In some of the ways that we see that happening is about really being reflective. As I said, most equity practices are performative or mitigative. Either we just put on a good show or we reduce harm for a small group. For instance, in some schools, they have something like Science Club for Girls or STEM Club for Girls. You've heard of that, right? That's mitigative. Because 20 girls may have an opportunity to join the STEM profession in ways that they may not, or in avenues that they may not have been able to join if there wasn't a STEM Club for Girls. What about the other 2,000 girls in the district? We need to look at the district or look at the school and see what are we doing that makes it difficult for girls to perform well in these professions or in these classes that lead to these professions. We manage inequity in society. That's what we do. We manage inequity. We don't create equity. We manage inequity. And we do that again by mitigating the harm that those furthest from justice experience, but we don't alter the underlying inequitable structures that foster and sustain inherent bias and exclusion. Equity in its purest form is an action that transforms the conditions that perpetuate harm. Advancing equity initiatives without intentionality is at best performative. So you've got to be intentional about it. All these organizations here, represented here, are doing good work, but they're being reflective about what they did. Are there after action reviews? Okay, we did this. What does this mean? How does this affect the community? What has changed now as a result of what we've done? What do we need to do differently? Who do we need to collaborate with? And more importantly, if we're going to do things for people who are in the community who are furthest from justice, they need to be a part of that conversation. They need to be at the table. They don't need handouts. They want they want you to raise the floor, but they don't want you to lower the ceiling. They want to be a part of what's going on and be a part of the conversation. A good friend of mine, Dr. Danisa Amante Jackson, says, belonging is the deepening of humanity. That when we are really about inclusion, we're really about equity, we're really about loving each other and creating a humane society that looks at those most in need. That's what it means to foster equity and belonging. Understand it's challenging work. You already know that. It's challenging work. Some days you go 2 steps ahead and 5 steps back. It requires daily application. See, as a principal, I require I'm no longer a principal, but as a principal, I require all of my staff to meet weekly in small groups to talk about race and culture and how it affects teaching and learning. And I would remind them at 3 o'clock, we're not off the race and culture clock. That if you're not talking about this in the grocery stores, or in the athletic fields, or in your communities of worship, then you cannot make this a part of who you are intentionally. It can't be internalized because it's 3 o'clock, I'm out, no more race, okay, we good. Because when you look at it, frankly, so many of my colleagues drive home to communities where everybody looks like them. And if they have people who look like them but maybe a little different, they hide them in the back. They stay in the house. They don't talk about those things. Fostering equity and belonging requires deep reflection. Your own internal self. Take a look at yourself. Look in the mirror. See, a lot of the work that we do is about looking out the window at them. Oh, them poor, ain't it awful? Oh my goodness. Let me go help them people out. But we don't do the reflection, the deep reflection that we need to do to really unpack what it is that I bring to this conversation, what makes me the person. And furthermore, when I'm in a situation where I'm a little uncomfortable, turn to wonder, why am I uncomfortable? What is it that I learned or didn't learn? What did I do or I didn't do that I need to do differently? Do the self-interrogation that needs to be done. Now, I'm a man who had, my late brother who was gay was murdered because he was gay in New York City. I have a sister who's a lesbian, and I don't do that to the, I'm all there, folks, I do that to tell you that I was raised to be homophobic, like a lot of the folks in this room are. I was raised to feel that there's something wrong with you. And it wasn't my brother and sister, love them and God bless them, that changed my way of thinking, because I wasn't even clear at that time what they were. I just felt it was a little different. It was a student, like I told you, everything I've ever learned, I learned from students. It was a student who was a middle school student when I was a counselor at the middle school. And we moved to the high school. And when we were in the middle school, we had a field trip to Washington, D.C. every year. And we put out a packing list, and it says, girls on this night when we go to theater should wear this, boys should wear this. The girl reads this 2 weeks before the trip, and she realizes she has to wear a skirt and a blouse, or a dress. The night of the event, she gets sick. And it's my turn. If somebody gets sick, someone's gonna stay behind. I stay behind. I'm not going to her room, but I keep calling her. You okay? Mr. Fernandez, I'm gonna be okay. And it was a miracle. About 9:30, when everybody came back, she felt all better. A year later, she comes to me. Now I'm a counselor at the high school. She says, you remember me? Of course I remember you. And she told me a little story about a movie she saw. And they said, remember when I was sick? Yeah, because I had to stay behind. I said, I didn't mind her. The food was better at the hotel than it was at that restaurant. She said, I wasn't really sick. I just couldn't wear a skirt. I hadn't worn a skirt since I was 6. And I didn't know how to tell anybody. And I thought about that. For 2 weeks, she had this list. For 2 weeks, she was anxious, scared, unable to make a decision about what is she going to do. She wants to go to D.C. like everybody else. But she can't wear a dress. There are children in our schools, in our communities today, who can't be what you think they should be. They can only be who they really know they are. Changed my whole trajectory when it came to homophobia. It requires cultural humility. In other words, I needed to be humble about my own cultural upbringing, about a young lady who acted and wanted to be like she was. We sometimes walk into situations like when I was very, very young and went to a restaurant with a few people, and it was an Ethiopian restaurant, and somebody said, why are they eating with their hands? There's something wrong with these people. Did not possess cultural humility, made a judgment based on their own limited cultural lens. I understand intentionality as being unambiguous, deliberate, and purposeful. If you're really going to do this work, if you really want to foster equity and belonging in Falmouth and beyond, you've got to be intentional. It's only with intentionality do you get clarity, and it's only with clarity do you understand what transformative outcomes look like. I want to close, before we bring up the panel, with a reflection once again on when I was a kid and how it stays with me. And you can all do your own reflections in the same way. I lived in Campello, and I worked in the Campello newsstand for about 3 or 4 years. I worked in the back, sticking papers. Some of you don't know that the Sunday paper comes in sections over the week, and you gotta put it together. And every day I would go after school and I'd put it together. So by Saturday night, most of it was done. Sunday morning, we're ready for the delivery. But I always wanted to work up front in the store and work in the cash register. And I got another friend who needed a job, and I let him know, a white kid lived a little ways from me, and got him to go to the job. Within 2 weeks, he was at the front of the store, ringing the register. About 8 years later, I was graduating from college, and I ran into the gentleman who owned the store. And he said, come on in and see me. And so he walks through the store and he shows me all the greeting cards. And he says, you know what, I never thought about this before, but all the greeting cards now, they come in all kinds of colors and all kinds of races and all kinds of things, and they didn't do that when you worked here. And when I looked at the first card that had a black person on it, I realized you all had been left out. And then I thought about it. I was one of the people that left you out. And he said, I will go to my grave being ashamed of not allowing you, the best worker I ever had, to be in the front of the store. I'm so proud of you and what you've achieved. And here's $500. And the dollar seemed worth it then, so. You never know what your actions or inactions do to the folks in your community. You should be very proud that you're here today. But you should be prouder if you're doing the same work tomorrow, and it's transformative. Thank you for inviting me. I hope that this has been somewhat informative, if not a little bit transformative. Thank you. Peace. Thank you. So, I don't have the names, but if the panelists can join me on stage. Okay, thank you. So what we're going to do right now is they're going to introduce themselves and say a little bit about what their organization and what they are doing to foster equity and belonging in their community or in their sphere of influence. And that's the important thing that we didn't talk about, is that we all have a sphere of influence. We may not be able to change the world, we may not be able to change Falmouth, but we are able to change things that are around us. And so they're going to introduce themselves, say a little bit about it, then we're just going to get into a conversation before we move into closing.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Weiss. I'm a marine robotics engineer at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and one of the co-chairs of the Committee for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I use he, him pronouns. And in brief, I'm here representing an entire committee, let alone a group of people beyond the committee, all at WHOI who are collaborating on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just to read the charter for the CDEI. Primary charge of the WHOI CDI is to aid the institution in its efforts to recruit, retain, and mentor a diverse community of employees, students, and postdoctoral researchers, and foster a culture of inclusion. That happens through a variety of activities, everything from educational outreach at all levels to WHOI-wide DEI training, collaboration with FCTV that we did around conversation starters and getting people talking about these issues, and so on and so forth. Just to call out a couple people in particular, my co-chair, Dr. Julie Huber, is also a huge part of this work, as is Dr. Natalie Navarez, who is our chief of DEI at WHOI. And so everything I'm here representing today is very much in collaboration with them and many more folks at WHOI.
Hi, I'm Alan Russell. I'm with Falmouth Community Television. I'm the production education manager there. And we have done quite a bit of collaborations with a number of you guys out here. I recognize, as you mentioned, the Conversation Starters program that we started with you all at WHOI. We also did a show called The Conversation, where we talked about a number of issues surrounding race, and I recognize quite a few of you out there that have participated in that show. So we tackled issues around, religion and sexuality and business and sports, and really every aspect and facet of our daily lives that is infected with racism, and tried to discuss not just the issues, but also possible solutions and ways to solve some of these issues. We've also done a lot of DEI work internally at FCTV. We trained all our staff on DEI and had weekly meetings where all the employees could come together and talk about race and racism. And we started this after George Floyd was murdered in front of all of us. And we even were able to get in with the Cape Cod Community College, did a program on DEI, and we were able to get our entire staff through that. And thanks to all of this work, we've actually been able to recognize moments in the community and ways that we can, improve our own organization and improve our outreach to, different people around the community that we've been leaving out. And since then, we've actually been able to increase the number of BIPOC individuals that use our services. Our interns and youth programs this past year actually saw over 30% of the individuals were people of color, which was a huge increase for us. And we look forward to improving our own mission to help reach everyone in the community, but we also look forward to working with all of you to get your message out and work on your mission as well.
Hello, my name is Ray Nishi. I'm a retired neuroscientist who is a new addition to the board of trustees of the College Light Opera Company in Falmouth. And I came into CLOC to initiate their DEI task force. And the College Light Opera Company, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit organization that recruits college students from all over the United States to come to Falmouth for an intensive summer music theater internship experience. And this involves not just the actors and actresses up front, but the musicians in the orchestra, the set designers, costume designers, etc. And to be part of this company means, for this company's been in business for over 50 years. And for the longest time, it was mostly white. And I'm really proud to say that through our efforts between 2021 and 2023, our summer company went from 6% people of color to over 20%. And one of the things that we did to achieve this, through the backing of the president of the board and the executive director, President of Board Deb Cohen and Executive Director Mark Pearson, is that we wanted the organization to really embrace the idea of diversity and inclusion, and we had to start with the board first. So I want to introduce to you two board members that we brought on 3 years ago who are helping us lead the company into the area of diversity and inclusion. First person I want to introduce is Marie Younger Blackburn. Marie, please stand up. Marie is a businesswoman on the Cape. She's a force, an organizer of many things, including Driven Women Conference for women business leaders, as well as her more recent efforts at #IncludeMe. The other member of our board is Sylvia Langford. Sylvia, please stand up. Sylvia is now a year-round resident of Falmouth. In her past, she's held a number of senior administrative positions at UMass Amherst and Dartmouth College, and her last position before she retired was as Associate Vice President of Student Affairs in Engagement and something else. Sorry, Sylvia, long title. Student Affairs is the important piece of it, though. And I'm afraid I hope I'm not leaving out any other board members who happen to be here. If you are, holler. Okay, so yeah, on top of diversifying the board, what was important to us, of course, was diversifying and recruiting broadly. But the other piece is creating an inclusive environment where everybody feels that they're included and they belong. And all of these students, about 60 of them every summer, come to the campus in West Falmouth, and we provide free room and board for them. And they work together, they live together, and they learn from each other. And the most important piece of this was to make everybody feel like they were respected and that they belonged. And in line with that, I'm the ombudsperson during the summer to field issues and make sure that everybody is feeling included. Last piece, part of equity, is that
even though we give them free room and board, the vocal company in particular really don't get stipends that cover any loss of wages that any college students might have. If they're on financial aid, you often have to work the summer to support yourself through college. So we've established a DEI fellowship fund, and there's information about the fellowship fund over there on a table, and we're looking for donations to it. And in case you're interested, the entire schedule for next summer is also over there on the table, and we hope you will come, because an important piece of what we're doing is that not just diversify the company, but to diversify our audience as well. Because we want to work with the community to create an inclusive space where we can share our goals and diversity through our performances and our internship programs. So I hope many of you will take this invitation to come join us this coming summer. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask them a couple of questions, but then we're going to open it up for anyone to ask any one of us questions. I guess the first question, and it's out to all three of you, is what do you wish that the community of Falmouth would do to support not just your organization, but the community's efforts to advance equity and belonging in our community?
Okay, so a very big piece of bringing diverse groups into Falmouth is the community environment. And many of you may know that the reputation of Cape Cod isn't necessarily welcoming to people of color. And we have certainly experienced that ourselves when our company members have interfaced with the public. For example, last year, one of our black actresses and her mother was standing on the bridge near Chappaquay Beach, and a car drove by and yelled the N-word at them. And this was really horrible. And thankfully, the company provided a lot of support. I was prepared to come talk to her and help her as well, but there was so much support from within the company that she ended up texting me and saying that it's okay, you don't need to come talk to me about this. But you know, it's about, you know, what that interface is with the community. And I'm sure you've probably seen reports in the local paper too about experiences of some of the summer interns in Woods Hole interacting with bus drivers who didn't recognize they had a pass and things like that. But I'll let you go and talk to them.
Sure. So I'm glad housing has already come up in this conversation. And I think sort of as I was reflecting on what this day means, a big part of Martin Luther King's speech sort of before the I Have a Dream section is about the economics of oppression and sort of the intersection of that work and diversity work, and specifically for the young people who are trying to move here, as was said earlier. The housing problem of not being able to find affordable housing is one of the first barriers that you confront if you get an internship at one of the oceanographic institutions and are looking, well, where do I stay? And the options are so slim. And the reason why I'm bringing this up in the context of this great question that you posed is because one of the things we can all do as community members is to be engaged at select board meetings and when there's committee meetings for the Affordable Housing Committee. The young scientists over at MBL that were already mentioned are doing an amazing job trying to organize more of the young folks at the oceanographic institutions to show up to these meetings and make sure that voice is heard. Because I think one of the most surprising things to me when I started to come to those events was how many people were showing up to do the opposite and advocate for affordable housing to not be on the docket and not to be built in our backyards. And so it would be extremely valuable, I think, as a community if we could all be showing up and making time to advocate for affordable housing in the way that it ripples through all DEI work for everybody.
Yeah, I would completely agree. That's one of our biggest challenges as well with our internship program is unless someone either lives here on the Cape already or has family or something like that, it's very hard for them to find housing down here, especially in the summer months, which tend to be our busiest. it's almost impossible for someone in college to be able to afford a housing place down here. And so oftentimes they'll end up rooming, and they'll also have to work on top of the internship just to be able to afford a place to stay. So that's been a big issue for us as well. And another thing that we've started to take on this past year is we've done a lot more work with the Cape Verdean Cultural Center and Museum here on the Cape, here in Falmouth, working with Barbara Burgo, and really I'm surprised that I'm learning so much, not just about the Cape Verdeans and Cape Verde in general, but about their contributions here in Falmouth and their long history here in town. Going back to some of the original settlers here in Falmouth, it's something that I think a lot of people don't recognize, and they have some really great exhibits over at the museum, so we've been working with them to kind of highlight some of their work this past year.
This may seem redundant, but I want you to really zero in. I want you to look out around this gathering, and I want you to tell them one thing that you want them to do tomorrow to advance equity and inclusion.
Sure, I can take a stab at this. I think one of the most important things that we can all do is, as you're sort of bringing up already, is to learn about different perspectives. And I think being here is everyone demonstrating an interest in hearing other voices and perspectives. And so tomorrow, if you're not already reading something, I think pick up a book about a perspective you're unfamiliar with. I'm sure there are tons of reading lists you could reference. There's also a book club I hear in our very backyard that's trying to do this sort of thing, so you should sign up with them. But if you're not involved with that, pick up a book on a perspective that's unfamiliar to you related to DEI work.
And I'm always a big fan of education and reading, and would certainly push that, but as someone from a TV station, I'm also going to obviously push you to watch some videos or documentaries as well about the life of Martin Luther King and the civil rights, or even the conversation or this program on FCTV.
I would advocate that you talk to somebody different from you. Look around at who you're surrounded with and go out into the community and talk to somebody who looks different. It's easy to do. You go to the local bar. Some friendly places in Falmouth. You can go sit on a park bench or just walk up to somebody, introduce yourself, shake their hands, and learn about them, because I think you'll learn something really different.
So where's this bar at? I want to recommend two things. If you're into education, half of my speech I stole from a book. It's called Fix Injustice, Not Kids. That's a book. Fix Injustice, Not Kids. It speaks about how we reconstruct schools to be inclusive for all our students. But it's applicable across the community. Fix Injustice, Not Kids, by Paul Gorski. And then there's a video. You can even get it on YouTube. There are excerpts. It's a 3-part video, 3 hours. Go to the last hour, which is more, I think, topical. It's called Race, the Power of an Illusion. Race, the Power of an Illusion. You've seen it? And it's called, and the third part is called The House We Live In. And it actually shows you how we ended up to be suburbs and cities, and suburbs being predominantly white and cities at one point being predominantly of color. Beautiful, beautiful video that I think you'll enjoy. I see a hand over here, yes?
I think it's more important to be peacemaker and to that's the only way we're going to advance.
Okay, I'm gonna, here we go. Good. You didn't know I could walk.
We wanted to invite, at this point, just a few people to come up and pose comments or questions. You can use this mic right here.
Hello, my name is Terry Sunter, and my question is, I think we're getting too lost in being peacekeepers and not peacemakers. We have to have a process that we follow in order to move forward, instead of our mouth writing a check that our actions are not cashing. Like, for instance, in the town of Falmouth, we have a DEI position that remains open, and you can either have results or you can have excuses. You can't have both. So until we protect everyone in town by our town government doing their job and not deleting the job like they did in 2013, we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to have any protections. It's not going to be easy. Conflict is never easy, but it's worth it because it's the human thing to do.
So are you suggesting that peacemaking is a little about conflict?
Yes. Embrace the conflict. Embrace the uncomfortableness to make it one for all.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Other questions? I guess they're all thinking about what they're going to do tomorrow. Yes.
Well, I'll make a comment. I mean, it's so inappropriate because I'm here to photograph. But I'm here to photograph, and I just got called on this assignment last night, and I feel like everything in my life has brought me to this moment, that I relocated here to Cape Cod. I grew up here. My life was about diverse, like, you know, I grew up in that Metro West town that you're talking about, that you referred to. And my class was the first class with the METCO program. And I come from a family that thought very differently. There's a book by Adam Grant called Think Different, and I would recommend that also. It's on Audible. And I'm just so honored to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rep. Kip Diggs from the 2nd Barnstable District, and I'm a state representative because my son is no longer here. He was killed in a car accident, 4 boys going back to college. But my community fed me and my ex-wife for 3 months. We had a meal every single day, and that was a commitment by my community. So I was like, what can I do to give back? And someone asked me to run for state representative, so I did. My church family was behind me, and they picked me up when I was at my lowest. And I'll tell you, when I got elected, I said it was not about me, it's about we. I don't care about the right, I don't care about the left, I care about people. And you know, now I can see various things through a lot of lenses because I know how it feels to be left out, not part of. So I treat people like they want to be treated. I don't care what you look like, what you don't have. It's about us loving each other. So thank you for having this, and this is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Full disclosure, I knew him when he was a little. I went to school with his brother, his late brother, which we just figured out sitting at the table over bacon and potatoes. Okay. Yes, sir. Come around.
I'm Rudolph Weisenberg. I work at the MBL. Halfway through your talk, which I really thank you for, you were mentioning colorblindness, and you used it in the context that the society is not yet colorblind. That's at least what I understood. And I heard also from other sides that no, we don't want to be colorblind. We want to be, and so we want to appreciate or recognize that we come from different backgrounds and we have different experiences and so on. So I wanted to ask you or the panel, where should we stand in terms of colorblindness?
No question. I may have mispronounced something. I do not believe in colorblindness whatsoever. See, colorblindness, when it was conceived, was a convenient way to have people not be uncomfortable about diversity and difference. If I look at you and think of you as the same as me, I don't have to acknowledge that you don't have the same as me. Colorblindness only benefits those who claim they're colorblind. And guess what? You cannot be colorblind. That's like saying I'm looking in here and I don't see people with glasses. That's some kind of blindness right there, right? Or I look and I don't see women. The fact that I stand here and I am clearly not a white person. Remember a story, I was in a grocery store once. I'm going through the grocery store. There's a little white boy, he's following me around with his mother. Not really following me, but he's, you know, and then they cut in front of me. And so the little white boy, he's my friend now. You know, like in the movies, you see eye to eye. It's like, boom, we have love. Me and this young boy have bonded. We're gonna be best of buddies. And so he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. And he's performing and his mother's being upset because he's just acting up and she doesn't know he's performing for me. We get to the checkout. He's 2 checkouts away from me. He keeps looking at me, waving and whatnot. He's looking at me, looks at his mother, he looks at me, looks at his mother, he looks back at me one more time and he says to his mother, he's brown. And his mother goes, shh. You know, in case I didn't know and it might surprise you. We know why she did that, and I don't fault her for that, because that's, again, about the socialization. When a 3-year-old boy can see that I'm brown, then I cannot, or we cannot be colorblind. Thank you for the correction. Right, why don't you come up here while she's following up?
No, I just wanted to follow up on that by saying we should celebrate our diversity. The diversity of opinions and experiences is what gives richness to, to all decision-making and experiences. And that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, Marie.
I have a question. And the question is, have we overcome yet? In a few minutes, we're going to sing the old gospel song, We Shall Overcome. We're going to say, we shall walk hand in hand. We shall live together. Have we overcome yet? No. You know, that song was written so many years ago. And we are still here singing that same, to me, old tired song. I didn't look forward to doing that today. And I was going to, in protest, not do it. But out of respect, it gave fuel to the movement. But now we have to move that song forward. I always end with today instead of someday, because today we have to overcome income inequality. Sundays are the most segregated day in America still. Our churches are segregated, our neighborhoods are segregated, this room is segregated. When are we going to overcome? When are we going to grab someone in the neighborhood that doesn't look like us? And this is great. I am not, you know, this has come so far. But when are we going to grab someone that doesn't look like us from the neighborhood and bring them with us? You know, bring them with you. Anyway, I just want to celebrate my son Chase here. He has Down syndrome and he works hard in the community to uplift. Thank you. Sing today.
Today. Yes, go ahead.
I really appreciate that message, and I think it also bears saying that I feel extremely honored to be here as a young person on a panel and in a room with so many people who've been dedicated to these causes for, in many cases, decades. And the fact that you are still showing up to these events and you are still being present in the community and running these organizations, I think gives hope to a lot of the young people who are trying to move here and trying to be involved. And so, yes, it is hard and it is disheartening in many ways to see where we are today. And so I just wanted to say thank you for continuing, despite that, to be engaged and inspiring the next generation who are hopefully following in your footsteps.
I'd like to share with you two of the things that Brother Martin left us with that we don't hear too often. And he may answer this lady's question. He said, "Do not think that progress rolls in on some giant wheels of inevitability. No, it does not. It only comes with the hard work and struggle of ordinary people like you and I." And the other thing that he said to those who were full of hatred, lies, and violence, he said simply to those folks, "White supremacy is dead. The only question is how expensive you want to make the funeral."
Panelists, thank you very much. Everybody, thank you for having us.
Maybe one day. Not anymore. Our celebration today encourages us to keep working toward Martin Luther King's dream of welcoming diversity, providing equity, and ensuring inclusion. As I reminded some friends recently, we are witnessing increasing assaults on the acceptance of DEI. It can be difficult to wade the rivers of turbulent waters. May we all continue working to widen the restrictive banks, to decrease its resistance, and create freely flowing waves of peace and justice. Amen to that. On behalf of No Place for Hate Falmouth, I want to thank you all for joining us to make this a true community celebration. We look forward to seeing you for the 18th year. In leaving, I'll share with you one more, always yet currently so appropriate thought from Martin Luther King, and I quote, "To save man from the morass of propaganda, in my opinion, is one of the chief aims of education. Education must enable one to shift and weigh evidence, to discern true from false, the real from unreal, and the facts from fiction." Amen to that. All right, so I guess at this point, we're just going to ask everyone, if you wouldn't mind, to stand and sing the proverbial "We Shall Overcome." The wording is in your program. And thank you very much for attending today's celebration.